absolute value equations and inequalities. So I have this absolute value of A, and it's equal to B, where it says that my A comes out as a positive answer if and only if my B is positive when I start. Then I'm going to also get its opposite, it's negative. So I'm going to explain it better by actually working these out. First things first, let's look at part A right here. I need to make sure that first my absolute value is isolated, meaning it's by itself on either side of the equal sign as long as it's by itself, and it has a positive 1 coefficient on it. So if you notice here, since you don't see nothing in front of this absolute value sign, that means it's a positive 1. We just don't write it. So good. Next, we look at this number on the other side of the equal sign. Is it positive? If it is, we're going to be able to find its opposite. If it's not, and it's a negative answer, well, then there is no absolute value, okay? But if it's 0 here, then we're going to get 1 absolute value answer, okay? So, again, isolate your absolute value. Make sure it's got a positive 1 coefficient on it. Check. Next, look on the other side of the equal sign. Is that number a positive number? If so, we're going to have 2 answers, and we're going to find its opposite. If the number is negative, then we're not going to get an absolute value. If the number is 0, we're only going to get 1 answer, and we're just going to solve for the value, the variable, okay? So let's start this. We see that this is a positive answer, so I'm going to get its opposite. So I'm going to just come over here to the side, and I'm going to write its opposite right quick. And now let's solve for both of them by dropping them out of the equality signs, or absolute values. I'm sorry, guys. Dropping them out the absolute signs. And I could solve for the variable. Alright, so let's solve. I need this variable by itself, the x, so I'm going to subtract the 5. And I'm just, because the equations are so much alike, I'm going to go ahead and come over here and do this to both sides. Okay, so now I'm left with a negative 3x on this side of the equal sign, and the same way on this other one. But what's going to change is the other side of the equal sign. On this first equation, I got positive 12 minus 5. That gives me a positive 7, right? Over here on the second equation, I got negative 12 minus 5. That means that I add them together and they're both negative, so it's going to be 17. So let's finish both of these up. I need a positive 1 coefficient on x, and I actually got a negative 3. So it means I need to undo the multiplication with division. What you do to one side, you always do to the other. And let's do the same to this other equation. And let's clean this up. So my first equation gives me x is equal to negative 7/3. And this the second equation will give me negative divided by negative is positive, so it gives me a positive 17/3. And those are my answers right here for this absolute value. Alright, so let's talk about when there are inequalities of it. Let's solve this one. It's a little bit different. So we have an inequality sign. It's the same thing, same rule. The only difference is the inequality sign, something happens to it. So my first rule I have to look for is my absolute value isolated? Yes, it is. Does it have a positive 1 coefficient? Yes, it does. And I said yes, it is isolated, and I apologize, it is not. Looky there, guys. See how easy it is to do that? It is not isolated. This is what I mean. This positive 1, or this negative 1 needs to become a positive 1 right here, right? Because negative plus positive goes to 0, then it will be isolated. So let's add it. But remember, what I did to this side of the inequality sign, I have to do over here. So now I have absolute value of negative, or 2 minus 7. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. So now, okay, check. It is isolated this time. It does have a positive 1 coefficient in front. Now I need to look at what's behind it. Right here, this 5. It's a positive 5, so I'm going to get 2 values, right? If it was a negative, I wouldn't. If it's a 0, I'd only get 1 value. But since it is a positive 5, I'm going to get its opposite. So what does that mean? It means that I'm going to have to flip the inequality sign and put the negative on the 5. So anytime you push a negative value through an inequality, it flips. Okay? And then we're going to drop the absolute value signs, and we're going to solve. Alright, so let's solve for it. I need the x by itself, so I'm going to have to subtract the 2 from both sides. So now I got negative 7 x is greater than 5 minus 2 is 3. Let's come over here and do the same thing. 2 minus on both sides. Now I got negative 7x is less than, well, negative 5 minus 2 is negative 7. Now I need a positive 1 coefficient on my x value, and I got a negative 7, so I need to divide it out. Alright, so negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1, so I have x. But since I had to push this negative through that inequality, I have to flip it, and now I get a negative 3/7. And over here, again, I divided by negative 7, and since I had to push the negative sign through the inequality, I have to flip it. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is a positive 1, and these two here are my answers. Thank you.